Well, hello and welcome back to the radio room. We're taking a look at the FT101 with some problems. This is one of the original 101s, no letter afterwards if you're just tuning in. Had a couple of problems that we were trying to solve. One being the power switch did not work. Anytime the radio was plugged in and had power going to the cord, it was on. There was no way to turn it off. As well, I was also suspecting that there was the bypass filter capacitors on the line in might have been getting leaky. It was making it so you had a pretty good tingle if you happened to be grounded and touched the chassis of the radio. And so I think I've solved both of those problems right now. And another problem we also had was it had really low receive. And I'm believing that that's probably caused by the fuse bulb on the back being blown out. I do have ordered some new ones. They're not quite what the specification calls for. The specification calls for 15 volt 0.15 amp or 150 milliamps. I could not find 15 or 16 volt out there in the right amperage, or at least the right minimum amperage. So I'm hoping this 14.4 volt, and I believe it's going to be somewhere around 168 milliamps, was going to work. I already have that in the radio as well. But let's just kind of go over what I changed in what you're seeing in the camera here. In the last video, I kind of went over what I suspected was the problem, and that was just two of the pins on the power connector, which is right back in here, were just wired backwards, and the hot was going right to the after the switch side of everything. So instead of actually unsoldering the pins on the back of the connector, because they got some pretty heavy duty heat shrink on there that I didn't really want to disturb, and it was a really tight area to try and work in there, even with this block pulled off. Now this normally on a 101, this block is underneath here, and the whole plug is further in. I thought about trying to get that back in there. The only problem was just with the way things have been redone here, there's a lot more heat shrink in here. There's a lot more some wire and butt connectors. This connector was added at some point, I'm guessing, or rewired or something. And this became a lot more crowded, a lot stiffer. All the wires got a lot stiffer because of the ways that things were changed. So it doesn't really fit inside anymore, so I did remount it on the outside, which I think is going to be okay, as long as there are not a lot of plugging and unplugging and plugging and unplugging. I think that's going to work just fine. It seems to be pretty stable where it's at. So what I did is these two wires right here, this one and this one, are the two key wires. They both run up to the switch. One comes from the AC hot to the switch and then back to the connector. But when it goes back to the connector, that has more to do with I think the DC side of things. It does go back to the connector, so not really any reason to. Really, this red wire right here is the important part. So what I did was I undid where they had spliced the wires together here. This wire, red wire, instead of being on this one, was on this one. This one's connected to pin 2, which is the hot pin on the connector. So, and since this is basically the main power for the radio, when it was connected straight to the hot input, if the plug was plugged in, this had power to it. So what I did is undid what they had done on these two wires and basically simply moved this wire from being over here to being on this one. That way the pins are the same. Now this is going to pin 3 instead of pin 2. It still goes up through the switch, so that should solve the problem of the power switch not working. As far as the bypass filter capacitors for the AC line cord. You can see a new one right here, this black one right here. And then you can just barely see, hiding underneath there, you'll see some light blue. That's the other one that I changed. Somewhere around here I got the old ones laying around. This is the old one that was now is replaced by the black one. And this one was the one that's the light blue one in there now. I did use Class Y safety capacitors since these are going between AC line power and ground. The reason why I did that is I'm trying to make this radio a little bit safer, and I'm going to go over a couple other things that I did. Hopefully that is going to make this radio a bit safer. Class Y safety capacitors, quite simply, if they fail, they generally fail open. So if something should go wrong with these capacitors, instead of shunting all the AC straight to the chassis, they'll just open up. What you're going to end up with then is maybe some more noise, some EMI coming into the radio. It might get some high frequency stuff coming in through the power cord that might get into the radio, but you're basically just going to have more interference. But you're not going to have it short out to the ground or the chassis of the radio. I did a couple other things. I had already replaced the cord on this once, but I got to thinking and looking at the diagram or the schematic, and I figured I could make it safer. And I think the best way to do that was to put a 3-prong cord on it, grounded 3-prong cord, for two reasons. One, the chassis is to electrical ground, so if there is anything that happens to go hot to the chassis, it's going to act as a safety ground. Two, I wanted to make sure that the polarity of the switch couldn't, or the outlet or plug, when you plug it into the outlet, couldn't accidentally be put in one way or the other. And there's a reason why I wanted to do that. This is a transformer in this radio, so it doesn't really care which side of the power cord is hot and which side's neutral. But it does, to me, in some ways, make it safer if you can put the hot on a certain side. And we'll go ahead and look at that on the schematic real quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll zoom in this just a little bit. So 2 is where right here is where the line voltage comes in. This is the actual cord side. So right here is number 2, and it connects to 2 right here, which of course goes through the switch and back over to 3, but it also runs over this way. Number 4 right here is the neutral side, and it comes down and also runs to actually runs to what they're labeling as the high 110 volt tap. On this one's 117. In some countries they run a little bit lower voltage, or at least used to. It's showing 100 volt. This one's set up and tapped to the 117 volt. More consistent with what we have in the United States, 117, 120 volts. The reason why I want to make sure that the hot is always on number 2, because if you think about it, if you don't have polarity, you can see the AC line cord coming in here. It could go to 2 or 4, the hot, depending on how you plugged in the unpolarized plug, just 2-prong plug. But I really wanted to make sure that the hot was always on 2. Now this is assuming the house's outlets are wired correctly, which I would hope they are. But if you go to 2, I wanted to make sure that the switch was always the first thing it came to. And then it would always go, the hot would always go to the fuse. I didn't want, if anything were to happen, that this be on the ground side, or the neutral side, I'm sorry. And I also didn't want, because if you look at this, if 4 was hot, you'd come in here and you'd have power going to your transformers right here, and then it would have to come over here, and if the fuse were to blow, then this still has hot on it all the way to there. If you have it plugged in backwards, even with the fuse good and the switch off, there's always hot going to the transformers. So if for something were to happen in here while you even got the radio turned off on the primary, you'd still have power going to it. This way, if the hot's coming in here and the first thing it's doing is switching, when you have the radio off, right here is as far as the AC is going. The other side doesn't have voltage on it, it's just the neutral side. So I definitely wanted the switch and the fuse to be on the hot side. And with a 3-prong polarized plug, well, this one's not technically polarized, but it is, let me show that to you real quick. Let's see. You know, a 3-prong plug. Even though the 2 blades aren't different sizes, there's only one way you can put this in here, into a 3-prong outlet. So I changed it over to 3-prong, and of course I also connected ground over to pin number 7, which normally doesn't have a connection to it, but if you look up here, it goes straight to chassis ground. So the chassis of the radio is now to electrical ground all the time. And that's gonna come in handy if we have any other problems, I think. If for some reason something should go to the chassis, internally, hopefully you're just going to pop a fuse. But you're not going to have, it's going to be shunted to the electrical safety ground, unless, instead of something shorts to the chassis and you happen to have your hand on it and you're grounded, now it's going through you. So I think this is a much safer way to look at the radio and a much safer way to operate the radio. I'm going to change some stuff up a little bit, and we are going to see if my fixes worked. One, make sure the power switch actually turns the radio on and not just plugging or unplugging it. And we'll see if, I guess I'll put my finger between some ground and the chassis, which really shouldn't. Even if something were bleeding to the chassis right now, it should be at ground potential. So I think this radio is going to be a lot safer this way. Let me get the camera set up. We'll take a look at the power switch while we switch it on. We'll be running it through the dim bulb tester initially, just to make sure something didn't happen over here that I haven't seen. I can put a pretty good look on everything here to make sure while I was redoing wires and stuff, nothing was shorted out. But we'll run it through the dim bulb real quick as we turn it on to make sure nothing's amiss, and we'll make sure it comes on. Alright, so give me just a moment and we will take a look at if this thing's going to turn on with the power switch, and everything's so far so good. Alright, so I got things set up a little bit differently. You can see the power switch up there in your upper right hand corner. Don't worry, the camera's not upside down, the radio is. Also, you can see the dim bulb tester. It is in current limit. I got the power turned off right now, got the bulbs in, and I'm about to plug it in. So our 3-prong plug, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. I do have the power on the dim bulb tester turned off right now. I'm also I'm just going to stick a short piece of wire in the antenna connector, so if this thing comes to life, maybe it can receive some static, and we'll be able to hear it. Let's see, I want to make sure the volume is turned down just in case. And if my piece of wire would actually stay in the antenna jack, this would work better. Okay. So, the power switch is in off. Heaters are in off as well. That's good. And let's see if this thing is going to turn on as soon as I turn the power on right here or not. And once again, as far as the dim bulb, we are in current limit test. Expect a brief bright flash as any capacitors inside the radio are charging, just for a moment, and then it should go very dim. So here's the first test. I'm going to turn this on, and the radio should not turn on. So in the upper right hand corner, if you see a pilot lamp light, we did something wrong. Okay, so power is on to the outlet. We don't have anything going through the bulbs, it doesn't look like. And the switch is still off, and the radio is still off. So that's a good sign. Remember before, if I flipped that switch, the radio came on. So let's turn the switch on. We'll watch the bulbs for just a moment. Should do a bright flash and then go dim. And then if that's all good, we'll go to bypass on the dim bulb and see if some static comes out the speaker when we turn up the volume. So here we go. There we go. Yeah. And the fan's running. We do have pilot lamps. Let me go to bypass so it gets full voltage. Should have seen the pilot lamps get a little bit brighter. I'm going to give it a little bit of volume. Oh. We got some noise. Sounds a little crackly. It almost actually sounds like the speaker might be a little in rough shape. So yeah, we got a little bit of that. So yeah, we're, I believe, in pretty good shape here. I think the next thing we ought to do is see if we got a better signal going into it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the radio off for a moment. As soon as I find the power switch. There it is. And I'm going to hook up a signal generator to it. And we're going to do a negative 73 dBm test on it. And hopefully I can do this. I do have the radio kind of in an odd spot for me to be able to see the front of it, but we'll see what happens. Now, if you remember in one of the previous videos when we first took a look at this radio, I put a negative 73 dBm signal into it and got pretty much nothing. You could maybe hear it if you listen carefully. So I'm going to get the tiny SA set up to do signal generation. Alright. And I believe we're sitting on 80 meters right now. Yep, the switch is in 80 meters. And if you remember the original symptom that the owner said he was on 80 meters and 80 meters was down, I suspect it was all the bands. So I'm going to set this at, let's go with 3.75 megahertz. That's in the 80 meter band. I'm going to set this to, I'm going to turn the tiny SA down as far as it'll go. That's negative 76 dBm. And I am going to modulate it with 800 hertz tone, because it's a little easier on my ears than 1000. AM modulation, and we should be good. Let's see, I got all those things saying. So I'm going to turn this on. Signal generator's on. I'm going to turn the radio on. Let me give it just a little bit of volume. We got RF gain all the way up. Gonna peak that, and then I guess I gotta see where the frequency is at. Looks like we're sitting just above 3.75, so I'm going to bring it down. I do want to make sure we're in AM, which, look at the camera here, it looks like we are in AM. Yeah, we're in AM. I'm going to bring this down to gotta set the pre-select. Yeah, it still seems like we're a little bit down here for some reason. Oh, I'm on CW. Well, it should be AM. Oh! I just didn't go far enough. Turn that down a little bit. Peak the pre-select. Now, I'm not sure y'all can see it in the, I think we're actually washing out. Let me turn that, first off, let's verify that we are listening to the signal generator and the signal generator only. So I am going to turn the signal generator off. It's off. And I'll turn it back on. Now I'm not sure if you could see that in the camera, the needle move on the meter, but before we had 0 meter movement. Turn that down a little bit. And now we are over S9. Negative 76 dBm should be somewhere around S8, S7 and a half, somewhere in there, I think. So either the S meter's a little off, or we got a pretty hot receiver. I'm really anxious to get this sometime and actually receiving some on air. There's kind of a... That gets very loud very quick. So I'm thinking this thing's got a pretty hot receiver in it. But it's, well, from the angle I'm sitting at, that thing is like dead on frequency. So, I think our receive is definitely up a lot better than it was. Let me turn this signal generator off. I'm really curious to get an antenna on this thing and see if we can receive something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause again here. I'm going to get the radio turned back over and faced a little bit different direction so I can actually read it a little bit better. I'm going to get the dim bulb tester out of the way. We'll just plug it in straight to the wall, and we'll see if we can get maybe hear some signals on this thing. So let's go ahead and shut it off, and I'll get this squared away a little bit easier to play with. And we'll actually get an antenna hooked up to it and see how it sounds listening to some 80 meter signals, which it's 9 o'clock in the evening here. We're probably pretty good shape for some 75 meter stuff. So let me take care of that real quick. Okay, so I've got the camera set up a little bit differently here. Hopefully this works out okay for us. Lighting is a little weird, isn't it? Maybe I turn this one off. Okay, that's a little bit more hospitable, I think. So we're going to go ahead and turn the radio back on, and we're going to see if we can actually hear some signals. I do have a external antenna hooked up to it right now. Just switching over to this radio. Let's turn it on and see if we can hear some signals. Well, I can already see the needle moving. Let me see if I can get this at a spot where y'all can see that. I just don't have the volume turned up right now. are on AM. Let me go to lower sideband. Okay, I'm going to hook up an external speaker to this. That speaker that's in there sounds a little rough. It might have some problems. Let me get an external speaker hooked up to this, and let's see if that sounds any better. Let's see if it actually works on an external speaker or not. Yeah, that actually sounds a lot better.
Non-ethanol gas, and I hadn't had a problem since then. Yes, sir.
Really sounds like it's receiving good. It's showing 20 over. I think the meter might be a little out of adjustment and showing a little higher than it's supposed to. Let's see. There's a.
I think Motorola arranged all that. They didn't, use. They don't have to pay their employees near as much. That thing's been through a lot, though. Remember, it's been stolen. WUC and the 64042 give you the information about SVE. Your turn, sir. Oh yeah, I'm just sitting back here. This is WI6Y. Yeah, I was. Can you give me that organization you were telling me one more time? I've got an actual notepad in front of me this time, so I'm gonna write it down. Back to you. Society.
Kind of move to the some 75 meter AM here, I think. Well, it's listening. It's hearing some AM. My speaker doesn't really seem like it likes to pick up. A little muffled with that speaker, but it is doing AM. We got lower sideband. Let's Let's move down here and see if the CW even sounds very good or not. Go to CW. Okay, so 80 meters is definitely sounding good. I'm going to go to 40. Try lower sideband on.
We'll just jump right in there. No problem, my friend. You take care and God bless. This is K4 OFM, Operator Lloyd out of Kentucky. And we're going to be clear and listening on your final. Take care, Norm. Okay. 84 OFM, Victor Echo 5, November Echo Charlie, 73 Lloyd. Hello CQ, hello CQ, hello CQ. This is Kilo Delta 4, Oscar Foxtrot Mike. KD4 OFM, we're calling and listening for contact.
Alright, I wonder if there's anything up at 20. I may have to retune the antenna.
Kilo United 2 Mike, Kilo United 2 Mexico, contact. Radio Alpha 5, Germany. Radio Alpha 5, Germany, 5908. 5929. Very good signal, спасибо. Спасибо. Bye-bye, Kilo United 2 Mike, Kilo United 2 Mexico.
Well, 20 meters is definitely working.
CQ contest, CQ Gagarin contest, Kilo United 2 Mike, Kilo Uniform 2 Mike.
And that's with the antenna not tuned correctly.
A 70X again.
Alright, so I'm thinking we've got a success on getting the receive back up on this thing. And most importantly, when you flip the switch, the radio turns off. Y'all might have noticed I was kind of touching right here. I've got a grounded lead here, and I was checking to see if I could feel any tingle. There's absolutely nothing on that. Of course, with the grounded chassis now, that's even if it did have any leakage through those capacitors, it would definitely put this at the same potential as ground. So I think we're definitely made progress on this radio. I think really the only thing that's left to do is I'm going to take a look at a couple of other things, just make sure everything looks nice. This radio had been on shelf for a little bit. Before we do a transmit test, and I'll probably just do a dummy load. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to show y'all. Let me see if I can pull this out just a little bit. and rotate this around. I gotta unhook some stuff from the back here so I don't totally wipe everything out. I'm gonna undo the antenna connector here. Get the coax out of the way. There is one other thing. I was looking at some stuff inside this radio, just kind of taking a look, see how everything looked. And inside here, I found something that was really cool. Let me see if I can get this off of here without taking the top off. I think I can just take this side off. Might have to take the top back off to put it back on, but and this one might kind of pique the interest of some people that have run 101s before, especially the original 101s. I think y'all are going to find this pretty cool. And we do our transmit test. This is really going to be a cool deal if everything works right. I do have a little deal I can turn the radio with now. That makes life a lot easier while I was working on it, having turned the radio around. It's just a Lazy Susan. You can get a 2-tier one, but you don't put the second tier on it. And it makes it really good, unless you're trying to undo some screws and the radio's moving around. But that's okay. It's a heck of a lot easier than trying to turn a heavy radio around on a workbench. So let me see if I can get this out of here. So, let's see how well these are going to show up. So, people who know FT101s, and this is just something I've kind of learned in the last couple of months while I've been working on not only this 101, but the 101E that I've been doing a recap on and trying to get going again. Some of the diehard 101 fans might notice something about this, what I'm showing you right here. And I'm going to guess this is pretty rare. And not something that you see very often anymore. Mostly look right here. It's got that green right there. And that says Tokyo. And right here, can't read it more than likely on the camera. I'm not sure y'all can read that or not. Right there, it says Toshiba, Japan. Here's a 6JS6C's Toshiba brand green bands. From what I understand, these are the tubes that the original 101s came out with. And from what I understand, probably around the sometime in the mid-70s, I'm guessing, from what I understand, they went from these to NECs, which were Japanese as well. But these are the original tubes that came in 101s. These are not American branded tubes. For all I know, these may be the original tubes that came in this radio. So I'm really hoping when we go to tuning this thing up and transmitting on it, that these guys are still working. I talked to the owner of this radio, and he said that when he was operating it, it was making full power, 100 to 120 watts out on sideband. And those are probably 50 plus year old tubes, maybe 52, 53. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Year old tubes. And I'm betting they're the ones that came in this radio. If not, somebody had a stock of them, or got a hold of some somehow, maybe in the late 70s. From what I understand, these things were next to impossible to get pretty much anywhere. In fact, I don't even know if you can find them anymore. But Toshiba green band final tubes in a 101. I thought that was really cool when I popped that open and saw those green bands on there. So let me do some more stuff on this radio. Probably gonna do a little bit more cleaning up. Try to clean up the knobs a little bit and stuff. I do need to rewire a mic with the right connector to really test to see if this radio is going to work on transmit. And of course, that microphone, I'll probably leave it wired up because I do have the 101E that I'm working on, and that's probably going to be the mic that I rewire for this one to test it. Will probably be the one that lives with the 101E in the future. So, but I thought y'all might like that, find that really interesting, especially if you know absolutely anything about 101s. From what I understand, you don't see that anymore. Most 101s, they got American tubes in them by now. So I'm really anxious to see what the power output is on this and talk on some original Toshiba green band 6JSC 6Cs. So thanks for stopping by the radio room. We got this guy listening again. We got the switch working. It can now turn off. You can grab a hold of it while you're grounded and not even get a tingle. I think we've made some progress, and I think the owner will be a lot happier with this radio now. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you later.